And welcome back. We are here with Iona Rose and co-commentator Stellar hosting Sonic Adventure 2. Slightly behind schedule, so good luck.
Hello, yep, that's Iona Rose. This is going to be Sonic Adventure 2 race mod, but I'll explain what that means a bit later on as we go on. So we're going to kick it off, and I'll give a countdown for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're off.
Yeah, so starting off at the beginning of the game is City Escape, a very, very welcome stage for a lot of fans' hearts. This is a classic. It starts off with a boarding section that involves not a lot in the way of inputs, but you can trick off of ramps to get significantly more speed. You can land yourself on specific hills to truly make the best advantage of where you're going and set yourself up pretty well for the first very intense part of the run, which is City Escape Skip. During this skip, you storage through some speed pads and you clip out through a wall to a very conveniently placed rail near the end of the stage. And it is pretty difficult to get to, but yeah, this is a trick that has not really been demonstrated at too many marathons because of how difficult it is to hit. And the skipless of the stage isn't too bad, but it is really cool to see hit when it is hit.
Yeah, I messed up the setup and ended up flying off the hill the first time. So I kind of just messed the setup up after that, so I kind of just stopped going for it, so I'll just finish the stage skipless. Still a fun stage without the skip, but the skip is really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the stage skipless myself because there are a lot of nice hills that you can just tear down at maximum speed. A lot of mechanics that are commonly used in this stage skipless are not really used in very many other stages, so it's a very fun stage to optimize in terms of movement, and there's a lot of little things that you can do in order to save time and, just look cool while doing it.
Yeah. But we're actually coming up to the end of this stage already. We're going to start getting chased by a giant gun truck. And essentially what we're going to try and do in this section is spin dash down every hill, but stop the spin dash and then try and recharge it right before the next one, so that we don't fly off the hill like that. And when the boost pads come into play, it gets a little more tricky to try and keep the spin dash going. You can go over the boost pads and keep the spin dash, but it gets a little tricky again. That was a relatively safe City Escape for the City Escape attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the more familiar viewers of this game may have recognized that the Omochao in the stage are not their familiar color blue. They are instead a color red. And this is something that will come into play as you see that the ring count is perfect at 0 and the score is far below what should be an A rank, and you get one anyway. These are the hallmarks of Race Mod itself. It is a mod that manipulates several things so that people know that it is on. But the first effect will be seen in the first stage after Bigfoot, which is the first Knuckles stage. The effect will be noticed quite immediately, and I won't quite have time to explain it there. But in the meantime, Bigfoot is a very consistent boss. You basically just go up in his face, and the amount of time it takes for you to land from hitting him is roughly the same as the amount of time that he's invincible from being hit the first time. So you just kind of jump into him until he dies. It's not too engaged of a fight.
Yeah.
But one thing you miss it is upcoming Wild Canyon, in which Rose is going to get very, very excellent pieces and finish the stage faster than Child You may have even thought was possible.
I don't think I've got the sub 10 though. I missed the first piece. Yeah, 11 seconds. That's not too bad.
Not at all.
But no, essentially, Race Mod is going to change every single Knuckles set into a determined set that I know exactly where every single piece is, rather than running around the stage trying to find hints or trying to locate where the pieces are. It's just a thing I personally prefer as someone that just doesn't have the time to learn all the RNG yet, so that I'm not spending about 5 minutes on a Knuckles stage. But right now,
A lot of
yeah, I'll let go, Stellar.
A lot of runners lament learning and relearning the Knuckles pieces every time they want to de-rust the game, because it is very, very involved to know where every single piece is every time you play. So if you're a runner that's intimidated by all of the randomness, or somebody that, you know, wants to pick it up but doesn't have the time to keep active all the time, race mod is something that maybe you should look into. It's a very underrun category. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, I would recommend it, especially even if you want to start out but you want to learn movement rather than rely on RNG for a while. Race mod is a great starter point for that, because even the Knuckles stages become pure movement rather than relying on your RNG to carry the run for a while.
Yeah, it's all very predictable, and you know exactly where your time save is, as opposed to hoping you get lucky.
Yep.
But speaking of very predictable, Eggman 1 was basically glossed over because, as far as we can tell, the AI developers glossed over him too. You can just point tail forward and spam the B button, and he just kind of falls and is surprised that you somehow beat him. Slightly more involved is Prison Lane, a stage that involves mech movement for the first time. You are Tails in a mech, jumping around corners and locking onto enemies. There are some enemies that are locked on from places you're not supposed to be able to, because the lock-on power is very, very strong. And if you know where the developers put the kind of safeguards, you can go around them in order to open doors, as this is the gimmick of this stage, is shooting enemies in order to open doors. So the earlier you can shoot them, the faster the doors open, and the faster you can get through the stage. Yeah,
you'll notice a few times I'm shooting enemies that are through walls that you can't even see, and that's mostly just because I know where they are. Like this one up here, I'm going to jump up, and usually for that one you need to get on an elevator and turn around, and then you'll see an enemy hiding up the corner, and then the elevator will start working to get to the gate. I think, no, it's the gate opens after you use the elevator to kill the enemy, but if you just go through that hallway and jump up, you'll be fine. You can hit the enemy through the ceiling.
Yeah, it's significantly easier and significantly faster too, so those little optimizations in Prison Lane absolutely make the difference.
Yep. I think Prison Lane's a pretty straightforward stage. The biggest real skip you have in it is the gate hops, which you saw me do twice, where you just jump on a fence to get a higher position. But that's really it. Mel Harbour, on the other hand, is honestly one of the scariest stages to do optimally, I would say, because the entire time you're basically over a death pit. So
Metal Harbor is one of the rare stages that's a run killer at every skill level. You can be new, you can be an expert, and every once in a while you can just lose a run because a skip went wrong or your movement was not exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Sometimes the light dash doesn't work.
Which, speaking of, Iona just collected the Light Shoes upgrade, which allows Sonic to interact with a ring, or a line of rings, excuse me, that can essentially slowly warp him to wherever he needs to go. This is something that is really only obtained because it has to be. If we could avoid it, we probably would. We definitely do this in Dark Story anyway. But yeah.
This is a bad missile skip. I might miss it. Okay, barely made it. So essentially that skip, what we're doing is, I think that's a mock bounce, kind of, slightly. No, it's not a mock bounce, is it?
It's a skewed gravity spin dash jump.
Yeah.
not as easy to, doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well, so.
Just I grabbed that actually there, but I'll let Stellar explain that skip while...
Yeah, so basically in this game, in order to account for the fact that it was 2001 and they hadn't figured out how to make things smooth and also able to run on a Dreamcast yet, the entire floor is made of very noticeable triangles. And so the way that they kind of get around smooth movement on multiple different kinds of slopes that, go on different angles is that your gravity is just kind of corrected to the angle of whatever you're standing on. So if you get on particularly angled gravity, you can use it to your advantage and just completely change where you're going. This is useful in many stages, but the missile skip is the first of many.
Yeah, now we've got the iconic cutscene that you can never skip. It's great. Because it runs on an in-game engine cutscene rather than pre-rendered, it's unskippable. There's a few of these sprinkled throughout the run, but Race Mod also removes a few of them, especially in the Knuckles stages.
I may take advantage of this unskippable cutscene to interrupt. We have a couple of donations to read out.
Yep.
First one is an anonymous $10 donation in aid of our bonus run Half-Life Duck Percent by Kazashter, which I believe I'm pronouncing correctly. Let me know if I'm not. Thank you very much for that. The second we have is a generous $50 donation from Tethys. Thank you very much, with the comment, Among Us. So clearly Tethys was not an imposter. Thank you very much for that. All of your donations will be going directly towards Crisis, to support people to find a way out of homelessness. Thank you very much.
So getting into the next stage here, we have... sorry.
I'll let you go.
We have one of the more aggravating stages in the game, Green Forest. It's not a particularly difficult one in terms of understanding what you need to do, but the aforementioned mechanic that makes the skewed gravity work is the same one that decides that sometimes you're just not on the ground anymore. Oops.
Yeah.
It launches you into the air, it kills a bunch of your speed,
There we
and
go.
you just kind of have to deal with it. Right on cue.
Okay, I got the loop step at least. And I started a wall run. I didn't even know there was a wall run there.
Oh, nice. That's actually optimal. If you wall run all the way up to the top, you can skip going up that spring, and it saves time. Skewed gravity is a very funny mechanic that you can use to run in all sorts of places you're not supposed to.
Yeah, there is a wall run you can do up this tree, but I'm terrible at it, so we're not going to bother today. We're taking the long scenic route, which just involves a lot of springs, and it's really not that interesting. It's just springs. It's just springs.
It is just springs, but the alternative is one of the more difficult skips in the game, so really it is pick your poison of if you want to really try to learn a skip that could kill your run, or, you know, just hang out for a moment, take a breather, go up some springs, jump over an automated section that has an invisible wall, and land safely on the other side, you know, as you do.
But yeah, you might have also noticed during a lot of loops in this game, we're not actually taking the loop. Instead, we're always going around it. That's because the underside of every single platform in this game isn't a wall. You can go right through every single one. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it looks like. If you can go through the underside of anything, you can go through and land on the top and be fine.
Yep. Lots and lots of one-way collision in this game, and it's very exploitable, but also very useful.
Yep. So now coming up, we've got Pumpkin Hill, which yet again, because we've got race mod, I know exactly where all the pieces are, so it's not going to be that difficult. This is one of those Knuckles stages that can take people a long time to learn. Especially this one is one of the main bearers of multiple hints, meaning, or one hint meaning multiple locations. So it can be very overbearing to learn.
Yeah, some hints look like they are less scary than they are because of the fact that, you know, oh, I've seen this hint before, it makes sense. But you have to make sure that it's the correct one.
Yep.
That you've seen the correct punctuation at the end. Maybe there's a slight word difference, like a place you can hear the horn instead of a place where you can hear the horn. There's a lot of very subtle differences, but again, because we have race mod, not only can we complete the stage very quickly, but we can complete the stage very painlessly.
Yep.
Speaking of pain, Mission Street.
Oh god. So, anyone in here like cycle-based stuff? Anyone in here like cycle-based entire stages?
Anyone here like loud noises?
Oh yeah, no, this stage is loud. I'm going to be shocked if you can even hear us at this point. This stage is obscenely loud, and we're not even at the loud part yet.
Yeah, there are lots of planes to accompany the symphony of beeps coming from Tails' mech.
So right there in the upgrade, what we're going to do is we're going to wait. Depending on what time we hit the upgrade, we're going to wait a while, just to make sure we can try and hit the best cycle we can. because while we wait at the upgrade, these cylinders all keep moving throughout the stage. And if we move off the upgrade right away, we actually make a worse cycle than if we don't. I believe that's how it works.
Something like that. It's a lot of risk reward in terms of how fast you can go, in terms of how long you decide you want to wait at the upgrade. And it's a very interesting push and pull game that you can play. Because as much as this is a cycle-based stage, and really it does boil down to, are you going to get within a couple seconds of the fastest time? You know, you can still make small optimizations here and there in order to you know, get to where you really have to go.
Yeah. I'm not going to chance it. I think I barely missed 0 again.
Brutal.
But no, something else you might have noticed, after we got the hover, what I'm doing is, on some jumps, I'm jumping, then pausing, and that, once I let go of the pause and keep holding A, for some reason the game gives us more height, which lets us get up jumps we really shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, there will be many instances that you have likely already seen, and very many in a stage to come, because we skip a good amount. Actually, no, you do the old skip for the Eternal Engine, so we'll get to see lots and lots of instances of the this pause hover technique, which honestly, in a marathon setting, I kind of prefer. It's nice to see the rest of Eternal Engine, as fun as it is flying through space directly to the goal ring, because you do still get a scoop of that flavor. You just get the rest of the stage mixed in with it.
Yep. And I think the old skip stops the stage roughly where it stops being fun anyway. Everything after that point in the old step I don't like.
You're definitely correct. After that point, the developers just seem to chuck as many enemies and hazards and stuff at you as they can. And oops, all of a sudden I'm out of bounds. Sorry.
Yeah, now we're in Aquatic Mine, which is just another Knuckle stage where it's going to be pretty straightforward. All the pieces are very close to each other.
It's a very cramped stage. There are a lot of offshoot paths which can lead to some pretty difficult sets to execute properly and quickly. But I mean, in a mode where you can just set the fastest pieces and, you know, a very consistent pieces, you can just make it give you a 15. Yeah. Why not?
But now coming up, we've got Route 101, which is the most boring stage in the game. Because nothing happens for about 2.5 minutes. So
yeah, the point of the stage is to drift, so unfortunately you are going to hear a little bit of screeching. It's optimal, trust me.
Yeah. It's one of those things I shockingly found out as a kid, then realised, oh, this actually transfers over to a speedrun. Yeah.
So the point of the stage is to keep your drift going as much as possible. Drifting does not give you the same acceleration as regular driving, but that's what boosts are for. Every 20 rings, or if you collect certain balloons, the game gives you a boost and you can boost forward. But aside from that, there's not really that much to the stage. And if there's anything that you would like to read out, BT, you're free to take that opportunity to do so now.
Thank you very much. Yes, if I may, I would like to tell us a little more about Crisis, the charity that we are raising money for today, supporting people out of homelessness for good. They achieve this through education, training and support with housing, employment and health, and 100% of the donations you raise today will be going towards them. Here's more about what they do in their own words. Every bit of our work is integrated and it all contributes to our purpose of ending homelessness. The services we provide are carefully informed through our decades of experience working with homeless people and the research we've carried out over the years. Our research is driven by our knowledge from working side by side with homeless people every day. This influences our campaigning for permanent change. We offer one-to-one support, advice and courses for homeless people in 12 areas across England, Scotland and Wales. And we carry out pioneering research into the causes and consequences of homelessness, as well as campaigning for the changes needed to end it for everyone for good. So thank you once again. You're, as well as obviously all of your donations going towards this wonderful cause. We also have a number of incentives going on this today. First one coming up will be for our Morrowind run later on today. There is a naming incentive, so you can donate money to try and choose the character name. That will be a lot of fun. We also have coming up a possible bonus run if the as previously mentioned, if the incentive is met to have a duck % Half-Life run, so that'll be very exciting if we can meet that goal. We have already sailed past the record total for our previous marathon, so thank you very much for all of your generous donations so far. It's all going to a wonderful cause, so please keep on giving what you can. Thank you very much.
It's a surprisingly noble cause that we're making cartoon animals move very quickly for. Yeah, that's really great, honestly.
It is a wonderful cause, and how better to raise money than to, as you say, make cartoon animals go fast. We sensible way, like, I don't know, packing bags at the supermarket or just shaking tins around, or we could play video games. Like, you know, good for everyone.
We're gonna spend all this time playing video games and knocking down our times to, especially in a stage like Hidden Base where you really need to get the practice in to get a good time. I mean, you may as well, right?
Yep.
Which, speaking of Hidden Base, if you wanted to see the technique where you pause between hovers to get height not intended by the developers, there you go.
Yep.
This is the skip that was originally thought to only be possible on GameCube due to a wall that does not exist. But as it turns out, you can just clip through corners if you do it in a specific way. So you can get enough to go around a wall they don't think you should get over, and then you can go through a corner they don't think you should pass through. So there you go.
The thing is that's scary about that clip is if you're right next to a wall in a mech and you're in the air, that wall will drag you down. So if you don't clip through that corner perfectly, you might have saw my face crunch up when I realised I wasn't. You start losing height, and you lose height fast.
Yeah, the walls have a vengeance in this game, especially in this stage, and Weapons Bed, I've noticed they have a little bit of a vendetta against the player character as well. Well, luckily, they don't seem to be giving you too much trouble, and you can just completely go over this maze section where you're supposed to shoot down doors and blocks, and none of it matters. We can just jump over all of it. Who cares?
And coming up, we've got the last wee trick in the run. Instead of going around this way, we're just going to jump up and go through a wall that doesn't exist either.
Yep. As it turns out, the developers of this game just assumed that people would play by the rules and, you know, not really check if most of the walls existed. And we checked. So that's where we are.
Now, that was a decently solid Hidden Base. So I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now coming up, we've got Pyramid Cave. Probably one of the hardest Sonic stages because there aren't really much in the way of skips that save a huge amount of time, but what you have is a lot of tech that goes on, especially with the new upgrade we're about to get.
Yeah, the new upgrade that we're about to get allows Sonic to bounce, and the bounce unlocks quite a bit for us. It unlocks the ability to convert a lot of our horizontal momentum into vertical momentum in the form of a super bounce, which we will use to be going through another wall the developers definitely thought was solid enough. And then we'll be able to use the skewed gravity thing that I mentioned earlier in conjunction with a bounce in order to keep a higher amount of speed, which, I mean, if we have enough speed, then the game doesn't think that our gravity's wrong. So we can, you know, use our bounce in order to cross a gap that's not intended. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. You can also bounce without the bracelet if you know how to do it, as Rose just saw by spin dashing into a wall in a specific way and gaining significant height from it.
Right. I'll get this. There we go.
Yeah, there are keys. We do not need the keys. Instead, we have significant height, which skips them. Although there is another key that we could use, but, you know, instead of going over it, why don't we just go through it? I think going through the door sounds like a much more fun possibility.
It does, when the clip works.
Of course.
Nah, it's fine, I got it.
Going through doors is how doors work in general, but, you know.
Well, you'd hope they'd be open first.
You would hope. We are speedrunners.
True, it really is true.
Balls are merely a suggestion after all.
Of course.
new UKSG merch right there. That on a t-shirt. Walls are a suggestion.
Right there, that was actually interesting. Usually you need to do that super bounce a bit blind because of the way the camera functions at that point. But I missed this round real, so I need to work around these goals and try and super bounce back up. There we go. But yeah, again, that's just the super bounce being absolutely broken. You don't need to worry about most of anything anymore. Like any sort of platforming doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, as long as there's a big enough wall in front of you and enough room that you can gain some speed, there is not actually a wall in front of you, and you're in space.
But now coming up, we'll get Death Chamber.
That was cool.
Death Chamber was the scourge of many a late game childhood. But in this game, we quite embarrass it.
Yeah. Death Chamber in a normal run, the name is usually very implied in being death because of the way the pieces work. But because we're running race mod yet again, as long as I don't die, there we go. We can set the we can set the pieces up in a way that we can just get whatever we need.
Yeah, this is not a particularly difficult stage once you know where all the pieces are. I mean, if you're playing it regularly, even knowing where all the pieces are might not be enough to get a good time, but in race mod, it's just so nice. It's the quality of life in this kind of mode is really something that cannot be stated enough. And honestly, even if you were a casual player, there's a part of me that wants to recommend that you play race mod through just once, just to feel what it feels like to be the type of person that does know where every piece is and just beat every Knuckles stage in less than a minute just to say that you've done it.
So it's only cut it close for a minute.
Can be formed by the game.
That one was cutting it close for a minute. I messed up a lot of movement. But now coming up, we'll get either one of the easiest boss fights to ever exist or one of the hardest. There is pretty much. Yeah, there's no in between for this one.
I'm very intrigued by that analysis. Is this due to RNG or just due to like personal opinion?
You either one cycle this boss and it's over in under a minute, or you miss the one cycle and it adds an extra minute to the time.
RNG doesn't cause it, but there's a phenomenon I like to call hand RNG.
Yep.
Where you do the inputs, but you don't do them actually, and you lose a bunch of time. Yeah, Boom Boo is very specific in how you need to hit him. You want to hit him at a specific hitbox near the back of his model that hits him in a way that doesn't flip him around, but also doesn't sacrifice so much speed that you can't catch him after hitting him, because he is supposed to run away faster than you are, but Knuckles is actually quite fast, barely slower than Sonic.
Yeah. Also, speaking of adding a minute to the timer.
I was about to ask if that not catching up with him was what just happened.
Yep. I barely missed the last hit, so now we need to sit through the last part of the fight, which is actually the longest.
Yeah. There's the length of the cycles is very much tied to the amount of health that the boss has left. So when the boss has the most health, it's, you know, the fastest, but as the boss gets lower and lower in health, the cycles add more and more time onto the run.
Yeah, usually this fight, if you get the one cycle, is about 40 seconds for the way I do it, but this is going to end up being about a minute 40 just because I missed that cycle. I got a 3-1.
Yeah, a very punishing boss to mess up, unfortunately, but
yeah,
I mean, we're here.
Yep, we're here.
The boss is dead anyway. He just combusted into a pile of flames, and now we're into a worse boss somehow.
Yep. There are ways to make the fight easier, but those are very difficult.
This is Egg Golem the Golem. He's got these little platforms on his back. They come out when they want to. If you go at the boss fight in a way besides the perfect way, it can be very difficult to get. Super bounces do work in this stage, as you just saw rather. However, in order to get them off of the front little walls there, it is a very small handful of frames that you can perform the inputs necessary to do so. Although despite this, Rose was able to get 2 of them and prepare properly for the head smash attack, which is pretty standard once he gets down to 2 hits remaining on his health bar. And following that, you can position yourself on his arm in order to spin dash up and bonk him on the noggin for the final hit, ending the fight.
Yep, it's a pretty straightforward fight once you learn it, but there's a lot that can go wrong. Like, if you ever land behind him after a hit, he will do a ballerina spin, which is really annoying to deal with because there's not much you can do while he's doing it until he finishes. So essentially we want to avoid that as much as we can. But thankfully, usually when you hit him you will land on the front, so it's not that big of a problem.
He is very committed to the ballerina bit. If you kill him, he will wait to finish spinning until he actually dies because he cares that much about his beautiful pirouette.
Yep.
And you know what? We'll allow it. I think it's beautiful to express yourself in that way.
I do too. I just don't like it when I'm in the middle of a speedrun, you know? No, right now we're just in the Eternal Engine. There is actually a cycle to try and make if you're doing the old EE step. Thankfully it is pretty easy once you learn the cycle. It's just trying to have good movement throughout. Right there you saw me hover under a weight. That's because while you're hovering, the weight never actually comes down to hit you. So we can actually just hover underneath the weight to get to the switch to stop it completely, rather than trying to move around it and all that. It's really interesting. But right here, that's where the cycle is, and we made it perfectly fine. And now we're going to try and set up for the old EE skip.
Yeah, this is the old EE skip because a newer one was found. However, the new skip is, despite the fact that it's faster, polarizing, and the fact that Rose is able to do the old EE skip by choice and still be able to get times competitive at the mid-level is truly showing of the fact that this is a very, very customizable game, and you really can just pick whatever strats you feel comfortable using in order to get the time that you really want to have on the leaderboard.
The annoying thing about this skip though is it's not very consistent a lot of the time. Sometimes at least. Usually I'm out by now, but if it gets to the point where I'm not getting out, I will just finish the stage. Yeah, I'll give it one more bash, I think.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of factors required in order to knock yourself out of bounds.
Yeah, you've got to fight against the door that's opening. You've got to hold a specific angle, get to that angle before the door's finished opening. So it's a lot that goes into it, but
now you can see the hazards and enemies we were talking about earlier.
This is the part of the game, this is the part of the stage where it becomes very unfun.
Yeah, the devs threw everything that they could out in this section, including floors that decompose if you decide that you want to get a bit fast with the enemies that you're shooting.
There's also enemies right behind doors to jumpstart you. And there's an upgrade behind that door, but I've missed it, so I'll need to go back up and get it. Because if you miss the skip, you need to get this upgrade now. I believe. Yep. I don't think there's a way to get through these boxes without it.
No, there isn't. Because of the unbreakable boxes on top, there's no way to get around them. If that top row of boxes wasn't there, you could just simply jump over them because 2 blocks are clearable, but it is what it is.
Oh, hey, it's big. He's just casually hanging out in space.
Yeah, Big the Cat isn't up to much in this game. He finds new spots to chill in, and you can see him throughout the run. If you mash the A button during a cutscene instead of the start button, which common mistake, Big says hello to remind you that you're pressing the wrong button.
I think that's only during one cutscene though, isn't it?
Oh, it's during more than you think.
That's
he finds very new and creative ways to show up.
So I know it's in the last story cutscene with Amy when she gets to Shadow, Which is like,
It's
she
in a
very
bunch.
deliberately moves out the way of something, but you never understand what unless you're mashing A and then Big shows up. But yeah, right here, we're actually at the end of the stage. Instead of taking this platform, we're just going to ignore it, because the ground's full of air that just keeps us in the air anyway.
Although I will say, if you're moving too fast, the air does not catch you and you die.
Yeah.
I learned this from experience many times in a row.
Nothing but realism in our cartoon video games.
Oh, of course, of course. Tails is very heavy, but light enough to be propelled by mystical wind that is unexplained.
Yep. We don't understand why it's there, but it's there.
It certainly is there.
Yeah, coming up, we're going to have Meteor Herd, which is the last Knuckles stage in the run. So this will be the last time we see Race Mode really take effect. And we're actually not going to see very much of this stage.
Yeah, this stage is one of the ones that has its average time cut down the most dramatically, I would say. Just due to the fact of how these pieces can be generated. Because the game decides, hey, you know, why don't we just put pieces near the rockets to show people where the rockets are?
Yep.
You know, their radar might lead them to them sometimes. And you go, oh, okay, that's cool. And so you just put two pieces on opposite ends of a very narrow hallway, and then another piece in front of the rocket that takes you up there. Boom, 20 seconds. There you go.
But now coming up, we've got the only Rouge fight in the game, which I've always found weird how every character's fought twice except these two. But this is should be a pretty easy fight. Essentially what we're doing is we're just staying on top of her, but I lost her. Oh. Yeah, we might see the second fate, yep. This is the part of the fight you always want to avoid, because it just gets really annoying trying to hit her. Okay, she's
Although
not.
luckily when there's only one hit left, you can just kind of roughly drill drive at her and hope that it catches her, and sometimes it does.
Yeah, sometimes it does. It did not there. She was determined to get to a platform before I hit her.
She does have that fly that flew into your window problem. You
Anyway,
can try and hit her, but unless there's a surface, it's going to be tough.
Stellar can have fun explaining what's going to happen on this stage.
Yeah, Crazy Gadget is crazy as the name might suggest. There are many skips in this stage, but one of them that you're going to see performed is death-defying, as the term may suggest. There are multiple kill planes that really do not want you to leave a very specific room that allows you to change gravity in a very specific way. But despite that, we are going to launch ourselves through the vast nothingness of space and directly into a kill box that happens to contain the final ring of the game. Or the final ring of the stage, excuse me.
I don't know if I don't
So-
I'm going to go back up. Sorry, you can keep going.
Yeah. There is a free cam variant and a bad cam variant. Unfortunately, bad cam is very difficult to do, as you have to do the entire skip blind. That was the only way that was known how to do the skip for many years. But there is a free cam variant, which is much easier. This is bad cam.
Yep, that was
You
bad
can tell
cam.
from the fact that you can't see anything that's happening.
Bad cam, I've never learned the movement for bad cam, so if I ever get bad cam, it's basically, oh, that was a wasted attempt.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2 is a game of very gradual movements in order to preserve speed. And when you're in bad cam, the camera is moving all over the place. And because all of your inputs are relative inputs plus the camera changing where your input goes means you're losing a lot of speed unless you're very good. Although luckily free cam, you can see where you're going a lot easier. The direction you're holding is consistent. You can just try to go to the goal ring and still get owned, because wow, is this a difficult skip.
I mean, I've got out of bounds all 3 times, so that's impressive. I can't overstate how hard it is to actually get out of bounds in this skip.
Getting out of bounds is by far the hardest part of the block cover method.
Right, okay, this time for sure.
Oh, Yeah, landing on the roof is a bit of a temperamental strategy because you are very much not supposed to be on there, and the gravity is very much not equipped to deal with the fact that you are not supposed to be standing in this direction, and it's not quite sure how to correct for your gravity, but you're technically on a floor, so the game doesn't launch you off. But,
there we go. We
all
got
of
it.
that to say, very nicely done.
And we get the funny Sonic voice line with the no yes. Because as soon as you hit the goal ring, you also hit a kill plane.
Yep. If you play the stage skipless, he hits a second kill plane before he hits the goal ring, so you hear blah, no, yes.
Yep. Anyway, now we've got actually the hardest fight in the game. This fight is very easy to die on.
Yeah, there are multiple strategies that people use, but when it comes down to it, it really is you versus Dr. Eggman, and he wants to win. Eggman won. I guess he realized how much of a pushover he was and decided to spend the next entire time following the most intense training regimen he could. He has a clap, laser beam. There are giant explodey things in the middle of the stage, and he's still taken down in less than 20 seconds if you know what you're doing.
Yep. But now we've got the last stage of the game. We've got Final Rush. Now, every space stage so far, except for Meteor, has had a theme. It's had a theme of, we don't want to play the stage. We instead want to fly towards the goal ring.
Yep.
Do you think this happens in Final Rush? Because...
That's a good question.
Right.
I wonder if it does.
Stellar, you can explain well, I can't, but never mind. I need to restart. Right.
Brutal.
I lost the gravity very quickly. But once I get to it, I'll let Stellar explain what's happening while I count, because counting is important.
Yes. This is a skip that is endorsed by kindergarten teachers everywhere because it helps you count to a double-digit number. Wow. So the point of the trick is that there is a very wide kill plane that extends into the vastness of space, and we don't want to touch it, frankly. We didn't think that you could get around it for a long time, but our old friend Skewed Gravity told us that, yeah, you can, as long as you have enough speed and your angle is correct. So we fly through space at a very specific angle, just so that we can go around this big kill plane. The devs thought it was big enough, but I guess it isn't. And after we've gone all the way around it, we are on course to fly directly to the end of the stage, which is very conveniently placed, not that far away from where we are. And we can fly through the background elements of the stage in order to go directly there.
The only annoying thing about this is you're completely blind for like all of it. So making sure you have enough height is a bit of a... I don't actually think I've got enough height, speaking of. Yeah, I don't think I've got enough height.
Yeah, making sure that you have the correct angle and making sure that you've gone around the kill plane in the correct way is most of the part of the skip. And unfortunately, on a skip like this, you don't actually know how well you've done until the end. So... Oh, also, did I mention there's invisible walls around the goal ring because they didn't want you to get there this way? Oops.
So walls are a suggestion, but invisible walls are immutable. Is what we've learned
Invisible
today.
walls are hard fact. There is no getting around them. Visible walls, those are fine. Invisible walls are impermissible.
Right, I believe I've turned correctly this time. Hopefully.
It's actually funny that you can only trust walls you can't see.
But no, the invisible walls are right behind the goal ring make this trick a little more scary than it probably should be. Because if you barely have enough height, sometimes the invisible wall will let you there. Or sometimes it just won't. We should be fine this time.
Nice. Yeah, making sure that you have enough height is a very, very scary thing. There are things that you can do in order to make yourself more likely to succeed, like you saw the pause extend in order where it looked like Sonic kind of just stopped like falling and started floating for a brief moment. there are little things like that that you can do in order to, you know, keep yourself alive, give yourself a little bit more distance to account for less height. All that matters is we flew through space and we hit the goal ring, baby.
Anyway, now we've got the last fight of the game. Hopefully, if everything goes right, this should take roughly 16 seconds. So I would say to get ready on time.
Not a very complicated boss fight. Just hit him until his shield goes away, basically.
And that is time.
Yep.
That is Sonic Adventure 2 Hero Story with race mode.
That was a wonderful run.
Thank
you
you.
very much. We are just about underestimate. Pretty comfortable
Yeah.
still. 20 seconds under. Pretty good. I'd say that's pretty smooth. You've done very well. Thank you very much for the run.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have any quick closing remarks?
Not much outside of if anyone's interested in running the game. There is a very big community Discord for the game, which you can find on speedrun.com. It's full of a lot of information to help anyone who wants to learn the game. But I'll pass it over to Stellar if he has anything to say.
No, that's basically it. It's a very welcoming community, and we very much enjoy having new runners. There is going to be a run of this game done at SGDQ if you'd like to catch that, by the current world record holder, Dage4. They are doing a bid war for Hero versus Dark Story when that happens, so if you really want to see Dark Story, you can get those donations in, but please vote Hero Story. The community really wants you to. But yeah, aside from that, that's about it.
Alright, well thank you very much. We are going to pass off to a quick intermission while we get set up for the next run, which is going to be Kazashter. One day I will pronounce that correctly, with Puss, so we will see you there very soon. Thank you very much.